I don't think that a lot of white people get questions about where they come from.
I could say it does come off as bullying, but at the same time, I think a lot of what's behind it is miseducation.
We want everything to be equal, but at this time, it's not.
Welcome to Kids Speak Out, Oregon. I'm Barbara Harrison. Today we're looking at discrimination, defined as putting a value on a group of fellow human beings without regard for individual merit, basing acceptance in the group instead on ethnicity, gender, religion, or socioeconomic factors. Our Kids Speak Out panel today is ready to take on this issue, an issue that has been discussed, debated, and even led to civil war in this country. But after all these years of being a racially and religiously diverse country with constitutionally guaranteed equal rights to its citizens, many of those citizens still continue to deal with discrimination. So let's find out who's on our panel today and what they've got to say. Let's start with you, Liam.
Hi, I'm Liam and I like doing art.
Hi, I'm Sabina. I'm 14 years old. I like participating in fundraisers.
Hi, I'm Mila Kashubara. I go to West Sylvan Middle School. I'm 11 years old, almost 12, and I really like anything that has to do with art, dance, and fashion.
Wonderful.
Hi, my name's Supriya. I'm a junior in high school, and I'm an artist of many forms. I'm a semi-professional hip-hop dancer and a multi-instrumentalist.
Wonderful.
I'm Elijah. I'm a sophomore in high school. I go to McDaniel High School, and I love playing sports.
Great.
Hi, I'm Bobby. I'm a senior in high school. I'm 18, and I am a huge Marvel fan.
Fantastic.
Hello, I am Gwendolyn. I go to Kellogg Middle School and I am in the 6th grade. I'm really into anything arts, acting, singing, painting, anything along those lines.
Fabulous. What a great group we have today. And talking about something that I think we've all know about, whether we're the victims of it or if we are the discriminators, let's talk about it and figure out what we can do to make things a lot better in this city, in this state, and maybe around the country. So has anybody here ever felt that they were being discriminated against for any reason? Well, we've got some head shakes. Mila, why don't we start with you?
Well, I am a brown person. I'm Puerto Rican, Cuban, Korean, and Japanese. And I go through a lot of racism every day. I also...
In what ways, Mila? Tell us about that.
Many ways are microaggressions, and they can be very quote-unquote small, but they really aren't. In some ways it could be just people looking at you in a weird way or making a comment that really, that is just internalized racism.
Okay, I can imagine, and I know exactly what you're talking about. Elijah, did you say that you've experienced racism too?
Yes, definitely with microaggressions. I've been to little tiny stores and places, and I've definitely gotten weird looks from workers there, or they'll keep an eye on me, and I've kind of felt okay, they may be just watching me, but there's definitely a hidden meaning behind it. I can definitely tell there's definitely a prejudice towards me.
And Bobby?
Yeah, again with the microaggressions and just little comments that people really shouldn't be coming out of their mouths, or people shouldn't let it slide. I once was told that someone was going to shoot me because I was black, because we're at the height of that right now within the past few years actually, which was just very disrespectful. So I'd say comments like that too are very hurtful.
Anybody else feel discriminated against for any other reasons other than color?
Yeah, I do.
Or ethnicity? Okay.
I've been discriminated against a lot because I am part of the LGBTQ community. I have had things as simple as hearing a slur in the hall, or getting weird looks for holding hands with somebody I like, or my best friend even. But I feel once again, kind of microaggressions, just somebody saying something or looking at me weird, and it's just I'm just holding hands with somebody. It shouldn't be as much of a big deal as it is.
Well, obviously we're talking about this because I had never heard the expression microaggressions. So you're talking about discrimination, right? In school, among yourselves. You want to say something,
Yeah,
Sophia?
I feel when we talk about racism, it's more of on the pure aggressive level. So things like police brutality, that's something that everybody can kind of see, but microaggressions are really hidden. They're something that are really small and are only seen by really the victim or the community members, So that's why microaggressions are like less heard of, less talked about. It's because people aren't really paying attention to them, and it's something that we've kind of adopted into our culture and like society of just letting it happen when it's not okay.
And the person who's being discriminated against can feel it, while some of the people who are responsible for these aggressions don't know that they're doing it, do they? Do you think they do?
No,
Sometimes depends.
Serena?
Yeah, I think that sometimes microaggressions can occur just out of like hearing it from somebody, and maybe they don't know that it affects you. And it can, like microaggressions can come in many different forms, but even if it's just kind of like what Gwendolyn said, like in the hallway or just a look that you'll get, it can happen, and you don't realize it until you hear about a way that someone was affected by it.
And you know, we can't really legislate acceptance, can we? If people aren't going to accept us, what are we supposed to do about it? Do you have any ideas of how we can fix the things that are broken in this country that make people dislike us because of our color or our sexuality or whatever? Any ideas? Or because of our weight or we just don't look the way they want us to look to be a part of their group? What can we do about that?
Bringing attention, I feel like, and I know this happens a lot where like somebody does call someone out on something like that, but like really bringing attention to it, like with this show even, just like getting multiple point of views and about different things. I feel like it's just very important to draw attention to it, and I know that in my past I have been very afraid to draw attention to that stuff because I don't want it to be about me, and I don't want people to think that like I'm that kind of person who's gonna like tattle, you know, but like I feel like if it's bullying, harassment, or discrimination, then it isn't tattling, it's just drawing attention to the fact that like this is hurting you and it's not okay.
So who are the aggressors? Who are the people who let you know that they don't like who you are, what you look like, or what family you come from, or what country your family came from? Who are they? Who are those people?
I think it's oftentimes people of the opposite race or gender or just anything that is like different from who they could be aggressive towards, or it could even be someone inside of that own community. And it's really hard when it is both ways.
But those are bullies, aren't they? Those are people who are bullying you. I mean, just people on the street. What you did say that sometimes you feel that people are looking at you and thinking that you might take something from the store or do something that you shouldn't do. Where does that come from?
Definitely, if you look at bullying, but there's also a history behind it, as in, slavery, there's the civil rights movement, all the things that were built up from the past 100 years. Now look at these days, people like little microaggressions, because it's not that like bullying and we look different, it's the history behind it. They know that, the slavery was a thing a long time ago, and there is the civil rights movement where people stood up for what was right, especially the colored people. So it's definitely the history behind the aggressions.
Yeah.
Do you feel any of that aggression?
Yeah, I think not only like I could say it does come off as bullying, but at the same time I think a lot of what's behind it is miseducation. People not understanding where these stereotypes come from, and then also how it's harmful. And they might also not be using the correct terminology. Like someone could ask you, what's your nationality instead of what's your ethnicity? Or like I've had people ask me, what are you? Referring to my ethnicity, when the proper way to ask that would be, what is your ethnicity or what's your cultural background?
Does it bother you if somebody asks you that? It bothers you?
It bothers me a lot.
When somebody says, how do they usually ask you? And where does the question come from? You're just sitting there, maybe they're thinking, what a pretty girl, I wonder where her family came from.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think that's what they're thinking. And I think you just know when you, like if you are a person of color, you just know that's not their intentions. And you can kind of feel it in the tone that they're saying it, or just like the way they're talking to you in a weird way like that. It's weird. What they'd say, it's like where are you from? I'll be like, oh, I'm from Portland. Where are you really from? Like,
Yeah, I can imagine that. Well, I guess one of the things is that you don't want to jump to conclusions that there's always malintent, that somebody means to be mean or means to exclude you because you're different. Maybe they just are curious because you happen to be interesting. Or attractive, or might have something in common with them. But you don't think that's it.
No, I think that people definitely need to be educated because the way that it comes off is very rude and just like you're impending like on me. And sometimes like I was also gonna say, going back to like the history of the stereotypes and everything like that, I definitely feel like a lot of the stereotypes that go along with POCs, people of color, they're very bad and have really awful intentions to make us look bad, to make it seem like white people are superior, and then you have the POCs and they're bad and they steal and they don't do well in school and everything like that. And then it also causes, I think, people of color, and I will speak from my own experience, that I'm very anxious a lot. I want to not fit into that stereotype. I don't want to be the angry black girl when someone's being rude to me, so I just sit and I take it, which just ends up hurting even more because I feel like I can't speak out.
But do you think that if you don't come across as the angry black girl, that it gives you a moment to get to know these people before and understand that maybe they didn't mean it, they weren't looking at you that way?
I definitely think that they were looking at me that way, even though they say, well, no, I wasn't, you were. I just think it's a way that someone was brought up and they don't know it yet. And that's why I think people really do need to be educated, and we do need to call people out, even though it can be really scary, because then there can be that shutdown of, well, it wasn't like that. It was like that, and I need you to actually listen to me for one time in your life.
Liam, have you ever had anybody ask you where you come from or who you are or what makes you different from anybody else?
Kinda. In school, I'm like half Irish, half Mexican. So when I tell people that, they're like, okay. So I'm not really, haven't been that like discriminated that much in school.
Well, and how about you, Sabina? Is it pronounced Sabina?
Sabina.
Sabina, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of going off of what Bobby said, I think that not the majority of discrimination, but a lot of it can come from misinformation and just not having enough education on the subjects, and that is also its own issue too, because that shows that like something is wrong and something is going on that prevents or even just like enablizes you to, or somebody to be able to understand that like what they're saying can actually hurt people.
So how can we get people to understand that they are saying things that are hurtful to us?
Education.
It all starts also with our use of language. So could I tell like a story?
Yes, please.
So like I had a boss, and the first time that I met her husband, he was like an older white man, and the first thing that he asked me, he didn't ask what my name was, he asked, what are you? And I knew what he was referring to, but I didn't want to like feed into that, like, that was an okay thing to say. So I said, I was just like, what do you mean? And he was like, oh, sorry, what's your nationality? And I was like, well, I'm an American, but my ethnicity is half Indian and half European, which is just reworking the use of our language just to make it like maybe click a little bit in the head that like that is the correct term to use for the specific thing you wanted to know.
Right. I guess what we really want to get to is a place where people stop having to ask. We have a lot more to talk about with this whole thing of being discriminated against, all of us. I mean, for one reason or another, no matter who we are, many of us have to deal with that. So let's take a break and come back in just a minute with more. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Kids Speak Out Oregon. We're talking about discrimination. Let me ask you guys, do you think that Oregon is a good state for diversity? Is this a good state to live in?
I mean, yeah, compared to a lot of other places, for sure.
Yeah, true. And I think Elijah wanted to say something about that.
Did
you choose to live here?
No, not really, but I mean, it's a good state. I think it really depends on where you live in the state. I think I live in Northeast Portland, and I go to a really diverse school, and I really see all kinds of ethnicities there, but it really depends where. If you're in Central Oregon, if you're Bend, all the way down there, you will see more white people. That's, I mean, that's my experience. But I mean, wherever you go to school, wherever you work, I think you'll have a different experience, really, because I have an experience of a diverse culture, and I'm like, yeah. So.
Well, do you feel uncomfortable when you're not with people who look like you?
It's not uncomfortable per se of just like not being around people that look like you, but it is comforting in a way to have people that also share similar experiences with you, share a similar culture. Like it's just a connection that's like different. And I go to a school that is predominantly white, so it's a little harder to connect with people in that way, but it's not like a bad thing. Like,
Yeah, I wanted to go off of that. I'm involved in my school's BSU, the Black Student Union, and I live in Tigard, and that's also predominantly white. So I really do value those moments or whenever we have a meeting, because it's this shared, just like this shared knowledge we have about each other that does make me feel kind of at home. Because I wouldn't say either that I feel uncomfortable, but there have been times where I have been made uncomfortable with things that were said or different looks or people touching my hair without asking me like that. Just those are some instances. So I do appreciate that.
I've heard that from other kids who say that why do they keep touching my hair?
Yeah.
And it is very beautiful, and we all have things that people want to know about us. But do you feel the kids who are white get the questions about who they are and where they come from, or no?
I don't think that a lot of white people get questions about where they come from, what their ethnicity is, and it's.
I'm sure you're right about that, because everybody just assumes that if you're in America and you're white, then you're white, and that you don't have any other background. Liam, tell me about you.
I'm Mexican, Irish, as I said.
That's right, you said that. But do you ever have anybody asking you, what are you?
Like one person I think did back in like elementary school, and I felt a bit offended, but I told them my nationality, and they're like, okay. So I haven't been that discriminated that much. So
like, I guess the big thing is having an answer that doesn't make you feel less important in this society. When someone asks you a question like that, if you get used to it, although you never get used to it, do you? Never get used to it. We hear a lot of people who say they don't like the expression Black Lives Matter. Do you have any feeling about that, Liam?
Black lives definitely do matter. Everyone is equal. Like, it doesn't matter the color of your skin or anything. We're still all human beings, so definitely Black lives definitely matter.
Well, I think some people take it the wrong way. They think when you say Black Lives Matter that you're saying just Black Lives Matter, but that's not how you all interpret it.
No.
Okay.
I mean, it's like,
Tell me a little bit about it.
I feel like the reason that it's the signs and the flags and the saying is Black Lives Matter is because it has been thought of that like other lives matter differently, not necessarily like more or less, but differently. And it's like because of that, the reason it doesn't say like white lives matter on it is because like me as a white person, I can't relate to the things that some people here are saying. That's why it says Black Lives Matter specifically, because
there's some people who
they
say
haven't been thought of that way.
Why doesn't the saying go Black Lives Matter too?
I would say, when Black Lives Matter and the movement had just gotten started, we were like, well, all lives matter. Well, of course, all lives matter, but all lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter, because our lives have been put in jeopardy for hundreds and hundreds of years. And I think still in this day and age with all the brutality going on, whether it's police brutality or just brutality just in everyday life, people getting killed just because of the way they look or getting beat up, we're saying, no, Black Lives Matter. We do matter. We want to be seen as a people. We want everything to be equal, but at this time, it's not. And I think that that's what we're trying to do, and not trying to have it just like, oh, only Black Lives Matter. Of course, all lives matter, but we do need to also prioritize Black lives because they are getting taken away.
Does it bother you to hear, any of you sitting here, to hear Black Lives Matter and not all lives matter?
No.
I think
No.
all lives matter is just like it's trying to shift the focus away from Black people when the problem is happening, or like the Black people are the victims of police brutality and the situations that have been currently going on. Like it's just taking away from their experience.
I also think, kind of to add on to what Bobby said, like white people have for hundreds and hundreds of years like had their time and like had their moments. It's definitely like now it's time to like actually like make it equal because it's gone too far.
And I also think that I know that there's kind of an apology if I'm trying to point out something that a white person did that I found that was really racist. I'll tell them that. Then they'll have their fake cry, try to make me feel bad for informing them and that I have gone through this. And that's something I really don't appreciate because that makes me have to say like, oh no, I'm so sorry, didn't want to make you feel bad or anything. And I think that is another thing with All Lives Matter. People are trying to be like, yeah, but my life matters too, guys. You know, I think it's just on that kind of line of things.
I hear a lot of stuff like that too when it's like, I'll hear someone saying something homophobic or sexist, or I've even heard people like to their own friends say something extremely racist.
Yeah.
And like it visibly made them uncomfortable. And I call them out on it and they're like, oh, it was just a joke. I'm like,
Let me ask you,
but
do
it's
your
not funny.
parents feel the same way you do? Do your parents feel like you do?
I believe so.
You don't feel like you've got to educate your parents or grandparents. So within your households and your greater communities, do you feel that things are okay in Oregon? Are things moving in the right direction as far as racial harmony goes?
We've come extremely far as a state and as a country, but there's always going to be work that needs to be done, right? Especially with microaggressions, like how do we dismantle that and how do we move on and grow together towards equality? And I think we're still missing pieces of that.
Yeah, I think I've definitely seen it more in like the education system. Like before, like I mean, like right, especially like a few weeks ago, we were just learning about like all these protests and all these like killings of like Black people, and it's like we were being shown this, and we're like, okay, this is like what's happened, what's been happening, and what's happening right now. So we're kind of learning about this and kind of like learning what not to do.
Yeah, and I think I'm really kind of lucky to have really amazing parents because they kind of support me through, like, no matter what. They support me with my decisions on like reporting things that I think are unjust at my school, like. And I know that I came out to them as part of the LGBTQIA plus community, and they were really supportive as well. And I think like things have also just been changing and things have been getting better, but I know for a fact my grandparents would not react the same way. Yeah. So in some ways it has been getting better, and in other ways things are just like staying the same, but like going in different, like, but it's just in different ways, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And Liam, I want to ask you, what is your take on discrimination? What have you seen? You don't have to be the victim, and maybe you have been for other reasons. Doesn't have to be the color of your skin. But
yeah, I see it a lot in my school. Well, not a lot, but a bit. And it's, mostly towards Black people, and it's just really just like bad. Like, and my grandfather is he's Mexican, fully Mexican, and he grew up in Mexico, came to America, and he was definitely racially discriminated because he was poor and he picked fruit for it and didn't get much money. So definitely my family has been a bit racially discriminated, mostly my grandparents though.
Do you ever hear people make anti-Mexican remarks or anti-Hispanic remarks?
A bit, but there's actually a bit of Mexican people in my school, but a bit, definitely.
But you don't feel defensive when they do that?
A bit, because like it's not nice. You shouldn't be able to do it. It's like the microaggressions again.
Do you see any things that we need to be doing right now to change that? We've got a lot of people at the border who want to come across from Mexico.
Yeah.
Do you have any sense of how we should react to that?
We should definitely be letting them in because people from America can get into Mexico, but not the other way around. So
if they want to come from a life where if they want to come and make a better life, then they
should be able to. They shouldn't like not be able to just because they're Mexican.
Well, I think a lot of people have socioeconomic reasons for not wanting people to come into the country who might take jobs, but we also know that we need people working
Yeah.
here. So that's a question that we should look at more closely on one of our other Kids Speak Out episodes. But I've enjoyed having you guys share your feelings with
Could
us.
I say
Anything? Yes,
something real
please.
quick? Something that I actually see a lot is once somebody finds out about something like a physical or mental illness, or like whether you're part of the LGBTQ plus community, or they find out some things you've been discriminated against, then I feel like that's some things that people only see you as. And like, for me, I'm only 12. I'm not 100% sure that I am lesbian. I'm pretty sure, like, I know myself, but I'm not positive, you know? Like, nobody really can be 100% sure about everything all the time. And I feel like I had a friend for a while, and they found out that I was lesbian, and they said, I don't want to talk about that with you. I do
Your
not
friend
support
said that.
I'm not going to support that. And I'm like, okay, like.
And are you still friends?
Not really. I mean, we've never really like stopped being friends, but we don't really talk anymore.
Yeah.
You know.
I think we have a lot to learn from you, so we're going to invite you to come back and talk to us again.
Okay.
I really enjoyed talking to all of you. I've learned a lot from you, and I think people who are watching have learned a lot too. So thank you very much for coming in to Kids Speak Out Oregon.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
This has been an interesting discussion about prejudice and discrimination. We thank our panel for their insights. We hope you will join us next week for another edition of Kids Speak Out Oregon. I'm Barbara Harrison.